My husband and I had been looking forward to our first date night in months. Our 3-year-old daughter, Emily, was our pride and joy, but we desperately needed some alone time. We had hired a babysitter named Sarah, who came highly recommended by our neighbors. Little did we know that our decision would lead to a nightmarish experience. As we left for the evening, Emily seemed in good spirits, waving us goodbye with a cheerful smile. Sarah assured us that she had everything under control and that Emily would be just fine. We believed her and set out for our long-overdue night out. We enjoyed our dinner and relaxed at the movie theater, but as the night wore on, my unease grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I glanced at my husband, who shared my apprehension, and we decided to cut our date short and head back home. When we returned, it was nearly midnight, and the house was eerily quiet. We assumed that Emily was sound asleep, but as we entered her room, our hearts sank. The bed was empty, and our daughter was nowhere to be found. Panic surged through us, and we frantically searched every room in the house. Sarah was gone as well, and there was no note or explanation for Emily's disappearance. We called the police immediately, and officers arrived at our home within minutes. We provided them with all the information we had about Sarah, including her contact details and the recommendations we had received. The officers launched a search for both Sarah and our daughter, and we spent a sleepless night waiting for any news. The following day, the police discovered that Sarah had a history of petty theft and had used a fake identity to secure the babysitting job. Our worst fears were confirmed when they found Sarah's abandoned car in a nearby parking lot, but there was no sign of Emily. Days turned into weeks, and the search for our daughter continued relentlessly. We plastered missing posters around town, held press conferences, and even enlisted the help of a private investigator. The community rallied behind us, offering support and assistance in any way they could. Months passed, and hope dwindled. We couldn't understand how someone we had trusted with our child could have betrayed us so cruelly. The pain and anguish were unbearable, and our lives were consumed by the relentless search for Emily. Then, one fateful day, we received a call from the police. Emily had been found in a remote cabin in the woods, where she had been kept by Sarah for months. She was alive but malnourished, traumatized, and struggling to communicate. The reunion with our daughter was both a blessing and a heart-wrenching ordeal. Emily's experience had left her deeply scarred, and it would take years of therapy and support to help her heal. Our babysitter horror story serves as a painful reminder that trust can be shattered in the most devastating ways. The trauma of those months still haunts us, but our love for Emily and the unwavering support of our community have helped us navigate the unimaginable. It had been a hectic week for my wife and me, with work and parenting taking a toll on our energy. We decided to treat ourselves to a much-needed date night, and our 2-year-old son, Tommy, was in good hands, or so we thought. We had hired a babysitter named Jessica, who came highly recommended by a close friend. She was warm, friendly, and seemed genuinely caring. As we left for the evening, Tommy was happily playing with his toys, and we felt confident that we had made the right choice. Our date night was enjoyable, and we returned home around midnight, expecting to find Tommy sound asleep. But as we entered the house, a sense of unease settled in. The living room was in disarray, toys scattered everywhere, and there was no sign of Jessica or Tommy. Panic surged through us as we searched every room, calling out for our son and the babysitter. It became clear that something was terribly wrong. We called the police immediately, and within minutes, officers arrived at our home. We provided them with Jessica's contact details and any information we could remember about her. It wasn't long before the police discovered that Jessica had given us a false name and contact information. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, and we couldn't fathom why someone we had trusted with our child had deceived us. The search for Tommy became an all-consuming nightmare. We appealed to the public, shared his picture on social media, and engaged the help of the media to spread the word. Friends, family, and even strangers rallied to support us, providing comfort and assistance during those dark days. Weeks turned into months, and our desperation grew. We lived with the constant ache of missing our son and not knowing where he was. The uncertainty was unbearable, and we clung to the hope that he was safe and unharmed. Then, one evening, we received a call from the police that sent shockwaves through our hearts. Tommy had been found, abandoned in a park several states away. He was physically unharmed but emotionally traumatized by the ordeal. The reunion with our son was bittersweet. Tommy had been through an unimaginable experience, and he struggled to adjust to life after the abduction. The trauma would take years of therapy and support to heal, and we were determined to provide him with all the love and care he needed. Our babysitter horror story had shattered our trust and left us with scars that would never fully heal. We couldn't comprehend why someone would deceive us and take our child. It served as a painful reminder that even in the midst of trust and familiarity, danger can lurk, and the safety of our loved ones should never be taken for granted. Our lives had been a whirlwind of work and responsibilities, and my husband and I decided it was time for a much-needed break. We hired a babysitter named Rachel to look after our 4-year-old daughter, Sophie, for the evening. She came highly recommended by our neighbors, and we felt at ease leaving our precious daughter in her care. Little did we know that our trust would be shattered that night. Rachel arrived early, and Sophie instantly warmed up to her. We could see that they were getting along well, and our concerns faded as we headed out for our long-awaited dinner date. The restaurant was bustling with people, and for a few hours, we forgot about our worries and enjoyed each other's company. As we returned home, we expected to find Sophie tucked in bed, fast asleep. But the scene that awaited us was anything but peaceful. Our house was in chaos, with toys strewn across the floor, and there was no sign of Rachel or Sophie. Panic washed over us as we frantically searched the house, calling out for our daughter and the babysitter. There was no response, and it was evident that something was terribly wrong. We called the police immediately, and officers arrived swiftly at our home. We provided them with Rachel's contact details and all the information we could remember about her. It was then that we discovered that Rachel had used a false identity to secure the babysitting job, and her real identity was unknown. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, and we couldn't comprehend why someone would deceive us and take our daughter. The search for Sophie became a relentless mission. We shared her picture on every available platform, organized search parties, and rallied the support of the community. The days turned into weeks, and the anguish of not knowing where our daughter was gnawed at our hearts. Then one day, we received a call from the police that brought both relief and terror. Sophie had been found, alone and frightened, in a remote cabin in the woods. She was physically unharmed, but emotionally scarred by the ordeal. Our reunion with Sophie was an emotional roller coaster. The trauma of being abducted and isolated had taken a toll on our once vibrant daughter. It would take years of therapy and support to help her heal. Our babysitter horror story was a painful reminder that danger can come from the most unexpected places, and trust should never be given blindly. The scars left by that night would stay with us forever, but our love and determination to support Sophie in her recovery were unshakable. My husband and I had a rare opportunity to attend a close friend's wedding, and we were thrilled. We had hired a babysitter, Melissa, to take care of our 2 young children, Sarah and David, ages 5 and 7. Melissa had been recommended by a trusted colleague, and we had no reason to doubt her competence. Little did we know that this evening would turn into a nightmare. Before we left, we briefed Melissa about the kids' routines, meal plans, and our contact information. Sarah and David seemed comfortable with her, and we headed out with peace of mind, looking forward to the celebration. The wedding was a joyous occasion, and we reveled in the festivities. As the night went on, we were somewhat distracted, but we assumed that everything was fine at home. However, a growing unease began to gnaw at us as the evening wore on. We returned home later than expected, and as we entered the house, an eerie silence greeted us. The living room was dark, and there was no sign of Melissa or our children. Panic surged through us, and we rushed through the house, calling out their names. It became clear that something was terribly wrong. The house was in disarray, with toys scattered, and Melissa's belongings were gone. Our children were nowhere to be found. Fear gripped us as we immediately called the police, and officers arrived at our home without delay. We provided them with all the information we had about Melissa, including her contact details. However, We soon discovered that Melissa had given us a fake name and contact information. The realization that we had entrusted our children to a stranger filled us with dread. The search for our children became an agonizing ordeal. We launched a desperate plea for their return, sharing their pictures widely and involving the community in the search efforts. Days turned into weeks, and the pain of not knowing where our children were was unbearable. Then, one day, a breakthrough occurred. A neighbor reported seeing our children with a woman who matched Melissa's description. The police traced her whereabouts and found her hiding in a remote cabin in the woods. Our children, Sarah and David, were found with her, unharmed but visibly shaken. The reunion with our children was a mix of overwhelming relief and anger. They had been through an unimaginable experience, and it would take time and therapy for them to recover. Melissa was arrested and faced charges for her deception and abduction. Our babysitter horror story serves as a chilling reminder that trust should never be given blindly, especially when it comes to the safety of our children. The trauma of those days remains with us, but our love and determination to help our children heal are unwavering.